Oh, now I have audio.
Audio is always nice to have.
There we go. Alright, so once again, welcome LIDX No Screw Tournament featuring RiddlerSR and PikaPals. Looking at the stats, Pika is currently 27th on the leaderboard with a PB of 59.38. Riddler is 15th on the leaderboard with a PB of 57.04. So two fairly close players. As I mentioned earlier, I expect a close match out of this. But you never know what RNG will happen.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier too, this race is pretty important because whoever wins this one is actually going to progress. So these players have a lot to win here.
Right, first thing you will notice as they walk along is they are clipping themselves in the walls. Doing that not only does it help the tricks later in the run, but it's minor optimizations. It's less pixels you're having to move, so you're able to move quicker. And both players going for early sword, and they get it. Doing a damage boost off of that. I think we called it a sea urchin earlier. Not sure what its official name is. And just minor optimization saves a few seconds.
Yeah, essentially you don't have to... you can pick up the sword right away. You don't have to wait a little bit before you can move and then pick up the sword. Just little time saves, but every second counts.
Exactly. Those tiny saves add up over the course of a run. Also, we didn't actually introduce ourselves. I'm Final Flame.
I'm White Wolfos.
And we are your commentary team for the evening. Probably the next hour or so. So both players heading up to the forest. You'll see the first... I'd say two pieces of tech up there. The first one being Moblin Skit, which is a very reset-heavy portion of the run. Obviously, we can't reset in this race. But it involves... Come up to a Moblin, you want him to face up, and you want him to shoot you across the pit. Now, during that, you'll also see the players have to clip themselves into the wall, as we talked about a moment ago, so they don't immediately just walk into the pit and die. You'll see that in about 45 seconds from now.
Yeah, but before that, we need to get a little money so that we can purchase some items once we get back to the village. So that is what these two players are doing here.
And what they're doing right there as well, you only have a pixel or two in which the sword slash both of those at the same time without doing extra walking. If you walk forward too much, you fall into the pit. We don't want that. And here's Riddler working on Moblin Skip. Oh, and the Moblin turned down just as he went to hit him with the shield.
Yeah, like we said, this is a very heavy reset point. Just, well, looks like Riddler
got it. Waiting on Pika. And now Riddler, he missed Owl Skip.
Yeah, so there's a trick
you sit there and listen to this annoying.
So there's a trick you can do here where it's pixel perfect, but you can actually leave via the transition right when the owl starts to speak. So you skip
Pika
his text. Yeah, Pika just got it.
And Pika's at a half heart, so needs to be sure not to get hit by anything coming through here. Now, it's fine being at a half heart once you get through the forest, because you will be taking intentional death in a couple minutes, but you don't want to die in the forest. That will set you back.
Yeah, Pika here chooses to take an optional safety heart, though, because there is this dog, fox thing right here you can see on his screen that if you accidentally swing your sword and hit it, then it can attack you. So if you don't have a lot of hearts, that could kill you right there.
Both players working on trendy game. Should get it first try.
Yeah, so here they're picking up the magic powder, which really is only used in 1, maybe 2 rooms, depending in this dungeon, or in this game. So, have to get it.
And now, because we're speedrunners, we steal. Not in real life, I promised. But we are stealing from this shop, because nobody's got time to grind 200 rupees this early. Not only that, nobody's got time to grind 980 rupees for that bow and arrow over there.
Yeah, we're also picking up some bombs here. And bombs, as you will soon learn, are extremely important in this run. You can do a lot of tricks with bombs.
Bow and arrow also is very useful to have early in the game. It's very overpowered, especially against some of the earlier bosses. And when you combine it with bombs, cool things happen.
Yeah, so
And by the
Riddler,
way, these players are now called Thief.
indeed. The price we pay for going fast, I suppose.
Yep.
So Riddler here, he's killing some enemies, and the reason he's doing that is that it increments something called the Piece of Power, which is this very important power-up that both increases your movement speed as well as your damage. And it's actually routed in certain spots, so you need to make sure you're killing the right number of enemies.
And you don't want to get that too early, because with Piece of Power, you'll lose it when you enter a new subscreen, which is you enter a cave, you enter a dungeon, you leave a dungeon. So if you get it, just before you walk into a dungeon, it's absolutely useless. You'll lose it as soon as you enter. We'll talk more about that a bit later on. For now, both players making their way through Dungeon 1 to probably the best item in the game in the Feather.
Yeah, so you can see that you saw there on Riddler's screen, one of the, I forget what they're called, those spiked turtle guys, fell into the pit. And when enemies fall into the pit, that doesn't actually increase your Piece of Power counter. So he has to now kill an extra enemy for it to be dropped right where he wants it.
And it's very important to pay attention to that as you're doing your run. That way you don't get surprised when Piece of Power doesn't drop where you're expecting it. So I said before, this is one of the best items. Helps break the game. You're about to see that in a trick called the Super Jump, and you're going to see this numerous times throughout the run, where players going to clip into the wall by just a couple pixels, jump, and then normally, not for all of them, but swing a weapon just like that with the bow and arrow, swing it away from the wall, and the game thinks you're jumping off a cliff. And, well, it allows you to get up to places you're not supposed to be yet. Or, jump over key blocks.
Yeah, and there are actually a few ways you can do this. You can use your bow, you can use your sword, you can use the fire rod. There's a method of doing it called naked super jumps where you don't even use anything at all. So a lot of different ways.
Hey look, the bow and arrow just wrecked the boss in 2 hits. Coming up on the first Moldorm fight. Just gotta get 4 hits in and not let him knock you off the edge. If that happens, you have to restart the fight. And Riddler dispatching him with no problems. Pika looking to do the same.
Another thing you'll notice is that at certain moments, they'll bring up the menu or the save and quit menu at certain times that seem very arbitrary, but really what that's for is to skip certain text screens. So you'll see that a lot when opening chests or when going into boss rooms because there's usually text that appears there.
Yes, same with walking into a dungeon, although typically that's where players will change their items in the menu to be ready for that dungeon, also because it's convenient times. Text. Hello, Mr. L. We don't like you. We'll be seeing less of you later.
Hopefully.
Right. And now, on our way back to the forest, you'll see both players killing those enemies for that Piece of Power rounding as we talked about. And we're going to go get probably one of the most overpowered creatures in Zelda history, in Bow Wow. And he might not look that strong at first, but he is very useful. He can be your best friend, he can also be your worst enemy, more on those later. But for now, it's required to progress the storyline and get in the D2.
Yeah, Bow Wow, his main purpose is to get into D2. And despite a lot of LEDX runners' best intentions, we haven't yet found a way to get into D2 without him. So, gotta pick him up.
With players missing that hard piece of shame, I have been asked before why we skip it. It's a time loss to pick it up, and we won't be getting enough to get a heart container. Nor do we need it.
Yeah. So both of them didn't. Both of them managed to dodge it this time, but they're actually see it one more time. So hopefully they won't get it.
You just saw on PikaPals screen the Guardian Acorn. We do not want to be picking those up. Those drop for every 12 enemy kills that you do not take damage on. And, it sounds useful. It raises your defense. Yeah, cool little music. That's about it. The problem with it is, when you are under the effects of that Guardian Acorn, Piece of Power will not drop, even if it's supposed to. And that Piece of Power is much more useful to us, as you will see later on. Riddler coming up to another trick called a Flock Clip. Gets it first try. Just walk right by an object.
Here's our first piece of Bow Wow RNG. Pretty good there on Riddler's screen, but it's completely up to Bow Wow when he decides to eat those flowers, so sometimes he can just stand there forever. Both of them getting pretty good RNG here.
I have sat there for 45 seconds before waiting. Piece of Power dropping for Riddler right where he wants it. I know we brought it up earlier. With Piece of Power, it does a couple different things. It raises your attack power, get stronger attacks, you can kill enemies in one hit. It gives you a knockback, so any enemies you hit will be knocked back. But it also increases your movement speed, and that's the thing we really like about it.
Yes, I think it also, you can pick up those pots faster when you have it too.
One thing to note is if you take 3 hits from enemies, you will lose that Piece of Power, so you need to be very careful with it. And there's Piece of Power for Pika. And Riddler dispatching that boss quite easily.
Yes, and as Crunchy just said in the chat, this is the Japanese 1.0 version. It has the fastest text. There are some text boxes you can skip in Japanese that you can't in the other versions. Has the most glitches and such, so yes.
Riddler getting the Power Bracelet, very useful item. And just a little bit more of D2 left to go, including one of the most annoying rooms that Riddler's entering now. With these enemies, it might not look like a big deal. You actually have to kill them in a specific order to get this chest to spawn. If you do not, you have to leave the room, come back in, and try it again.
Yeah, and sometimes just the positions of these enemies can really get the best of you. Because you want to not get hit so that you don't lose your Piece of Power, and sometimes they just move in ways that make that really difficult.
Or just get in the way of your pot throw, and kill the Stalfos instead. Alright, so Riddler coming up on the boss of this dungeon. Little bottle, genie, djinn, whatever you want to call him. So what you're meant to do is break this pot 3 times, and then kill the boss. That takes a while. So what we're going to do instead, get through this first cycle of him just throwing flames, and we're going to pick up the pot and actually clip ourselves into that top left wall and throw the pot. Now, because he's clipped into the wall, it instantly breaks, drops a bomb, hits the genie, and then shoots 2 bomb arrows to completely kill him.
1 bomb arrow, actually. I believe it's just 1.
I typically shoot 2. I don't know, maybe it's just 1 that's needed. And that is D2 for Riddler. Oh, and Pika having an issue and not getting the hits in. But quick backup and destroys them. Now, bomb arrows, in addition to being useful, are kind of cool. So if you drop the bomb and shoot an arrow, within 4 frames of it, it will shoot the arrow off in whatever direction. And when it hits something, it will explode. So you saw it there on that boss, and you will also see it here on the way to Dungeon 3. And once again, skipping over the Heart Piece of Shame. I don't think anyone in this tournament has picked that up that I've seen.
I picked it up, actually, in one of my races.
Ooh, I'll probably do the same.
Alright then, so after D2, you're supposed to bring Bow Wow back, but we're actually going to bring him along because it takes too much time to go back to the village, and we'll actually be using him at a couple skips here.
Yeah, you'll be seeing later. One thing to note is during this path and during others, Bow Wow will be eating many things that he comes across. That can be both good and bad. We'll talk about that more in a moment, but first, Riddler getting wrecked by that global frame rule. So, players are coming across a skip called Villa Skip. Short version of it is, you're trying to jump into that pit, and on the last possible frame, it might be hard to tell, but their players are listening for an audio cue, which you heard right there of Link falling in the pit. You buffer the menu, you press down coming out of the menu, and you transition to the next screen. And that saves doing a very, very long and annoying side quest. And that is definitely a piece of RNG that stinks. You can sit there for 20 buffers and not hear the audio cue, or you can get it first try.
Yeah, it's dependent on global frame rules, which is a fancy way of saying RNG. So you just hope for the best.
Both players getting in and out. And yeah, we can, open the key door from the wrong side just by clipping into there. Cool game.
Very well designed.
Okay, so once again, D3 is another place we're looking for a piece of power in a specific spot. It will be in a couple rooms. This dungeon also has a couple of skips coming up. Actually, it's one skip you just do a couple times, and that is the Dongo skip.
Yeah, and the thing with Dodongo skip is it is a possible soft lock area. So hopefully neither runner will soft lock here. But in tournament rules, you are allowed to save and quit if you get soft locked there.
One thing to note, if you die or do an accidental save and quit, ooh, piece of power, not dropping in a great spot, but he gets it.
Oh, yeah.
But if one of those happens, you must return to the room you died or save and quit in, and then progress. So Riddler getting first try to Dongo skip, but don't be celebrating yet, because we will be back there in a moment to do it all again. Pika also getting his piece of power. So both players very close. And both getting the Dongo skip first try.
Yeah, the soft lock potential is essentially if you bonk off of those Dodongos in the wrong way, or you take too long to do so, you can get stuck in those blocks. And there's no real way to free yourself. The second time we go through, though, we do have those Pegasus boots, which, depending on where you are, can potentially save you. But at least for Riddler here, it doesn't look like he needs saving.
Correct, and then do one last flop clip to get into that staircase. Fun note, if you walk up after you enter the staircase, you are soft-locked. You can't move from that block, because you don't have a key. And Pika also getting his second try to Dongo skip. First try, second time.
Yeah, but don't think this is the last of potential soft lock
Not
possibilities.
even close.
Oh, Pika doing the faster method of getting across that gap. Very nice.
Right. And onto the D3 boss, and there was the D3 boss. Not much to say about him.
Yeah, especially when you have piece of power here. He's relatively easy to go down. If you don't have it, though, you have to attack him with spin slashes in order to do it optimally.
Now, will either of these players go for the bomb trigger to skip the owl flying in? Looks like Riddler might. He has bombs equipped.
Yeah, so we'll have to see.
It only saves 2 seconds, roughly, but still. Oh, he went for it and he got it. So what he just did there is called a bomb trigger. I still wish I understood fully how it worked. Essentially, if you place 2 bombs on the ground within a couple frames of each other, you're not supposed to be able to do that, and the game doesn't like it. And it actually plays whatever cutscene is available for that tile. In that case, it goes straight to the Altec.
Yeah, so there are some cases when you can use bomb triggers to skip certain animations, but we're actually going to be using it here for one of the major skips that's called Walrus Skip. So the idea is essentially that you're supposed to do this whole side quest, get Marin to follow you, get her to sing to this walrus, but we can actually use the power of bomb triggers to get that cutscene to play. Unfortunately, this is another soft lock potential, though. If you don't do it correctly and don't leave this screen on the exact right frame, then you can soft lock.
And what'll happen, one of 2 things can happen. Either you transition away too early, and the walrus reappears and he stays on the screen, and you're soft locked, or a rabbit will appear on the screen before you leave, and you cannot do anything. Riddler getting through first try, that's good. Now, both players, I confirm, did have a save file at the ready in Animal Village in case they soft locked on that. Per tournament rules, that was allowed. And unfortunately, some players did not, were not prepared for that and soft locked the other day. Didn't have a save file ready.
Bone.
Yeah. But both players getting through, and one thing I note, at this point for Pika, his controls are locked. He cannot open his menu, he cannot use the bombs or the feather, which is why you'll see them enter this cave and immediately leave. That unlocks their controls. And I hope y'all liked that Landmola fight. Hope you got a good look at the boss, because we never see him. Yeah, right. So both players, once again, very close on the way to D4. And back to what I was saying earlier about Bow Wow, at this point he's going to be eating a lot of the enemies you pass. And it seems kind of helpful. However, if he eats too many, that's going to mess up your piece of power route, and you could run the potential for D5, having the piece of power drop before you get into the dungeon. And D5 is the one place where you really want piece of power, as you spend a lot of time in there and have to take out quite a number of enemies.
Yeah, past D5, piece of power, there are certain places where you would like it to drop, but it's very difficult at that point to route it in. But having it at D5 is very preferred. I believe it saves about 20 to 30 seconds if you get it in the right spot.
That's definitely a long time. Now, both of these players making their way over to the D4 keyhole, or hopefully not forgetting about the D4 keyhole. It does take a while to get there, and then afterwards it takes even longer to get to the entrance of D4. So if you mess up and forget to go to the keyhole, which I know some players have done, you're going well out of your way.
Yeah, I believe this area, or this part of the run right here is probably the longest. You're running around the overworld here. So it can be very easy to forget exactly where you're going, especially since we run through this area multiple times in the run.
Sometimes you're just on autopilot, and you're just going, and next thing you know, oh no, wrong area.
Alright, so Riddler coming up to a trick called Obstacle Skip. It doesn't really save that much time. I think it saves about half a second or so, and it loses a lot more if you miss it, but it's for the memes, it's for the swag, you have to go for it.
Not only that, we visit this place twice, so that's 2 times you gotta get it. Riddler getting it first try. Good. See if Pika does as well. Now entering Dungeon 4. Or I should say Dungeon 4 Part 1. More on that later.
Pika got it. Yeah, so as Final Flame was saying here, this is part 1 of this dungeon. We actually come in here, get the item, the flippers, and then leave. Because there's this side quest involving this ghost that you have to escort all over the place. And that takes way too much time. However, if you get to Dungeon 6 and get the item there, you can actually skip that whole side
Riddler
quest.
Struggling.
Yeah, Riddler here in Dumb Jump #1, but
that room is horrible, absolutely horrible.
Yeah, it's probably my least favorite room.
And by the way, that jump there just broke half the dungeon. And now coming up on one of our favorite mini-bosses, it is Cue-Ball. Why is he our favorite? Well, just stay tuned for D8 to see why. One thing I would like to note, we haven't had a chance to talk about this yet, we actually saw it on Riddler's screen about a minute ago, is we spend a lot of time in menus in this game. So menu optimization is very important, knowing where your items are, not having to spend a lot of time staring at your menu trying to find something. So you always want to keep things in a certain order and just get used to it.
Yeah, and everybody does their menus in slightly different ways. So everyone has their own little style.
Bad menuing can add minutes onto a run.
Oh
no, PikaPals. Oh no, that was his piece of power. He got that well early.
Yeah, one thing with those red shoes is that typically we'll attack them with spin slashes because while they're together, it only counts as 1 kill. But if you slash them once with your sword, then they'll split up into 2, which counts as 2 separate kills. And especially here when your monster count is very tight, any extra enemies you kill could make the piece of power drop, which is what happened with Pika here.
Now with Riddler, he's getting ready to enter D5, Ideally, on the first set of enemies he kills, Piece of Power will drop if he's routed everything right. And I haven't seen it drop yet, so I think he's on pace to get it.
Hopefully.
And if he does get it where he wants it, that will save him a lot of time versus PikaPals. Because with Pika not having the movement speed boost, that's huge. And there it is. So this is D5. We hope you like it. We're going to be here for a bit. And this is almost like a maze. You have to do a lot of backtracking in this. So you will see these rooms again. Once, twice, 3 times.
Yeah, the whole gimmick, I'll call it, of this dungeon is that you have to fight the mini-boss in 4 separate rooms in this dungeon, which you can't really skip. So that involves us going to the dungeon all over the place, having to backtrack and so on. So this is definitely one of the longer, if not the longest dungeon in this game.
Riddler's struggling. He's taken 2 hits. He just lost his piece of power.
Oof. That is definitely
really
not
hurts.
where you want to drop it.
That is good news for PikaPals. Gives him a chance to catch up. Back onto the mini-boss. You're about to see him here. Couple things to note. First of all, the first and fourth time you face him, he takes 3 hits with bombs and or bomb arrows. And in the second and third rooms, he only takes 2 hits. And these rooms must be fought in a certain order. You can't just go to one and he'll appear. It has to be done in a specific order, which is why we have to do the backtracking.
Yeah, and there's actually slightly different strategies you want to do if you are need to hit him twice versus 3 times. Here you see the hitting him 2 times strategy. A little bit different than using those bomb arrows, because it doesn't actually save time in that case.
Correct, and you want to conserve as many bombs and arrows as possible. We are on a very tight counter throughout the run. There are a couple places where you can refill them without too much of a time loss. However, you don't, any time loss is still a time loss.
Yeah, there are drops that are routed into the run, but you have to be very careful because there are some tricks which rely on arrows or bombs, and if you've run out of them, you may have to go way out of your way in order to pick up some more.
Now, one minor thing that might benefit PikaPals here with Riddler losing his piece of power, Pika has a chance of picking one up in this dungeon still. However, it might be too late for him to really make use of it. Riddler going for a naked super jump, which is doing a super jump without a weapon, in my opinion, is much more difficult, but in some situations it's quicker, so you don't have to do an extra menu. And now what you see Riddler doing is heading towards where you get the boss key. Now, you're not meant to do this until you defeat all 4 of the Master Stalfos fights, as we don't have the dungeon item. Oh, you almost got that first try. However, using the boots, we're able to skip the dungeon item and get this first. That way it's just less backtracking. Second try, not bad. I've seen a lot of players struggling with this in the tournament.
Oh, PikaPals failing in pretty much the exact same way Riddler did. Yeah, this is what we call dumb jump number 2.
And Pika got a 3rd try, so not too far behind. And now both players will be on their way to the last Master Stalfos fight. Riddler needs to watch his health. I know he's been taking a lot of damage this dungeon. And if he dies, that's a huge time loss.
Yes, because like we said, as per tournament rules, if you die, you have to go back to the screen which you died on. And in this dungeon especially, since you have to do so much backtracking and moving around, dying and having to go back to the area you just were wastes a lot of time.
I have learned where to get heart drops in this place. A lot of players struggle with it.
Yes, the one nice thing is that these V-Deads here, whatever they're called, they often drop hearts. So hopefully when you can get lucky.
Conserve his arrow there, not doing another bomb arrow. I believe for that fight, it is faster to do a 3rd bomb arrow, as he will die upon the 3rd hit. And the dungeon item, the hook shot, that will become useful later. So now both players will be making their way onto the boss fight of this dungeon. At this point, even if Piece of Power drops, you will not see them pick it up. Most players actually choose to lose it before the final boss fight, as it's actually a bit of a hindrance. The boss is Wall Snake, and you'll see him. We have to hookshot him out of the wall and get a total of 8 hits on him. You don't actually want the knockback at that point, as it does make it more difficult. Ideally, you want to be able to 2-cycle the boss, which is getting 4 or 5 hits on each cycle. But with Piece of Power, I don't know that you can do that.
There are a few runners, or one that I can think of, that does prefer. Oh, there's Piece of Power again, but like we said,
at this point, you would want to lose it. Riddler taking the safe method of getting across. Well, relatively safe for speedrunners.
Still not intended, but the safest non-intended
yes. way. Good old Wall Snake. Can't stand this guy.
Neither can I.
Ideally, we want to be able to get him in 2 cycles. It is random where the head will pop out from. Oh, no. Now, Riddler will have to do a 3-cycle.
Yeah, one issue you can have with this boss is that it actually has the second stage where sometimes when you pull him out of the wall...
Oh, Pika had a heart. This would be a bad time to die.
Looks like both of them got it.
Both of them.
Yeah, pretty much the same time.
Only about a second half off. But there's still much of the run to go. And a lot of RNG coming up. So coming up after this, we are going to head to Dungeon 6. First, we have to make a pit stop through the Armos Maze to go get the key. Now, the Armos Maze can be a bit of a challenge for newer players. There's a lot of enemies there. Bow Wow can really earn his keep, though, if he eats the right ones. A lot of Armos scattered throughout. Everyone that dies is guaranteed to drop an arrow, so it's a great place to refill your arrows if Bow Wow cooperates with the ones in your way.
Yes, I believe you want to get at least 3 arrows when you're visiting this maze. And typically Bow Wow will give you that.
If I remember right, I believe you want 4 coming out.
Yes, typically,
I have in the teens, because I'm bad.
Exactly.
And it doesn't look like either player is going for the the bomb trigger to skip the owl cutscene here. At this point, they'd have to equip the bombs, and it's probably not worth the time.
Exactly.
And here comes the Armos Maze. As I said, lots of enemies around. We'll see how each player fares. Now, you do see a lot of arrow drops, but if they're out of the way, they're not worth going to get. You'll get some that are right in your way, hopefully. Now coming up to the Armos Knight fight. Now, you want to get, I believe it's 5 or 6 hits on him. There's many different ways of doing it. We'll see which ones we see from each player. I believe the fastest one is what we're about to see from Riddler. Oh, there's Pika doing the same. Yes, bootstraps.
Yeah, so the idea behind bootstraps is that the Armos Knight, he has this attack where he'll jump up and slam the ground, which will stun you. But if you time your hits and your bonks against the wall at just the right time, then you'll actually be in the air when he makes that attack, and he won't stun you at that point.
There are other ways of doing that fight. Most notably, you can use shovel strats, which is what I do, because it's simple and easy, but it does take longer. They did the quicker method.
Yeah, you can also use your feather to jump, and that's how you can avoid the that stunning attack. So both of them now making their way to the next dungeon, and Bow Wow will once again be very useful here because he'll actually be able to eat the cutscene that opens the dungeon for you. Because how cutscenes in this game work is that it's actually a sprite that appears on the screen. You just can't see it. So if you if you shoot an arrow or throw a rock at just the right moment, just like that on Riddler's screen, then you'll be able to move during your cutscene, which saves a lot of time. Looks like Pika got it as well.
And that is why Bow Wow is the most powerful creature in Zelda lore. So both players going through Dungeon 6, not a terribly long dungeon. But there is RNG later on, as well as a soft lock potential.
Yes, fortunately, this soft lock is relatively easy to avoid if you know the positioning, but it still can be a little tricky.
Both players still very close. I must say, those whiz ropes, my first playthrough of this, such a pain. And then you look at these runners and you see just how easy it is when you know what you're doing.
Yeah, the thing
And
with...
you see Riddler getting the level 2 power bracelet. That right there is a trigger. After this, we can go back to Dungeon 4, complete it, and not have to worry about the ghost side quest.
Yeah, so that's where we'll be heading once we get the instrument of this dungeon. So we're coming up to a little trick here where you can actually use the hook shot to gain invulnerability, invincibility, whatever, against all these enemies here. There's really no other place except for this room where it's useful, but... Here's another room with these annoying whiz roads here.
With a nice arrow refill. Now, the next screen you're going to see Riddler on might look kind of odd, but he does this for a reason. He didn't do as many jumps to get through the water. Had he jumped, it would have been quicker. But he did a super jump from the left side to the right side just to help line himself up for the super jump on the next screen rather than having to walk up a screen and back down, or walk up to clip himself into a wall. So just minor optimization. And doing another flock clip. And this jump right here is where you can get soft clocked. Fortunately, we have a really good visual cue to avoid it.
But it still can be a difficult trick here. But
yes,
looks like you got it.
But now we're about to hit one of the probably the biggest RNG portions of this run, which is horse heads. You may have seen it on other streams. This next screen, you have 2 horse heads there. You need them both facing or landing up to open the doors. This can take as many tries as a game wants. See right there, Riddler getting 5th try.
Yeah, so definitely not the best.
Pika getting first try. That's a huge time save.
Yeah, so in that screen right there with Riddler, you have to be careful not to fall into that center warp there, or else you'll go all the way back to the beginning of the dungeon.
And on to the boss, Facade. You can get 3 hits on him before he even appears. His hitbox is still active. There's 3 hits. And now we just need to get 2 more while dodging all these flying tiles and pots around the room. If you're not careful, this is an easy place you can die at. Just like that. You take a harder damage from a hit. I've died there many times.
Yeah, but once you get used to the dodging those flying tiles, relatively speaking, can be one of the easier bosses.
Alright, and that is D6 completed for both players. As we mentioned earlier, they will now go back to Dungeon 4 to complete that before moving on. Best instrument.
I don't know, I'm very partial to the cello myself.
And there's another bomb trigger to skip the owl flying in. Very useful because you already have bombs equipped from the boss fight.
Yeah, this one is one of the more convenient ones to go for, but it is... These bomb triggers can be very difficult, especially since you really need to be doing them unbuffered, because if you try buffering them through the menu, then that actually loses as much time as the trick saves. So... Some runners choose not to go for those bomb triggers at all. it honestly depends on your bomb count, because there'll be a dungeon coming up soon where you'll need a lot of bombs for. So sometimes runners will choose to save that bomb instead of trying to go for the about 2-second time save.
Specifically for Dungeon 7, you'll need 9 bombs, and that's providing everything goes right and you don't mess anything up. So both players now going through Dungeon 4 and coming up on another fancy super jump here on Riddler's screen, where we're going to be doing a super jump and using our sword slash to ping against that P-hat right there and redirect us onto the ledge below. That trick is harder than it looked.
Yeah, you have to get the timing right, because if you do it a little bit too early, you'll still tank off of the P-hat, but you won't actually be high enough to get over that little ledge. And have
we
to
could
do it
easily
again.
just jump on over to the boss room, and there was Anglerfish. One of the easier bosses, 3 bomb arrows or sword slash and 2 bomb arrows, and he is done. If you ever need suggestions on how to do that boss, ask Cravone.
Oh, Cravone. We love you.
We do?
You just mess up sometimes.
And that was D4. So we could have done that sooner. However, had we just done D4 all in one go, right about now we'd have a long side quest to do, and it's pointless for us. We don't need to do that. So now time to make our way over to D7, and a couple things. First, we'll be going through screens you've seen before. We'll come across another obstacle skip, and then we'll come across probably the most difficult trick in the game, Rooster Skip, which, if you mess that up, it can lose you anywhere from 30 seconds to a couple minutes.
Yeah, so essentially how Rooster Skip works is that when you are firing your hookshot and you're over a pit, there's actually this one frame that you're allowed to stand on the pit and you can perform an action. And we use that for that one frame to jump so that we can get over this giant pit that you're supposed to do this big side quest for to get this rooster and so on.
That requires the ocarina. We're not getting that. That takes time. We're speedrunners. We need to do this quickly. Riddler coming up on his second obstacle skip, and he gets it. We are 3 for 3 so far. I think Pika will get it as well. There we go.
Yep.
Perfect 4 for 4 obstacle skips.
Yeah, so there's actually 2 main methods of doing this rooster skip: buffered methods and unbuffered methods. Buffered methods, little bit, are much easier to get like the exact frame you need, but of course it's much slower.
This can make or break this race.
Looks like Riddler's going for the unbuffered methods.
Oh,
But he falls.
Now, one thing of note, Bow Wow can mess you up here. He can get in the way of the hook shot, and you will have a bad day.
Looks like PikaPals here is going for...
Oh no! And then Bow Wow got in his way! Both players falling. And in that pit, you don't just fall and reset to the beginning of the room. You fall all the way down and have to... You actually end up outside the cave and have to go all the way back around.
Yeah, strangely enough, on PikaPals, it looked like he got the jump. He just didn't...
He didn't go anywhere.
To the left, yeah. And then Bow Wow got him when he was trying to hookshot again. But it looks like Riddler got it this time.
I think
Looks
Pika
like
will get it right here.
Yeah, Pika's getting some good buffers here. There
we go. So second try for both players. Had one of them failed and one of them gotten it, this race would have been much farther apart than it is now. But now to finish up and head to D7, where you will see bombs breaking quite a lot of things.
Yeah.
But first, we have another cutscene coming up from Bow Wow.
Yeah, this dungeon is extremely different than how you play it casually.
Casually, this is a very long dungeon. You have to get the big ball, carry it around, throw it into the pillars, destroy them all. Or we could just drop a couple bombs and trigger cutscene. That's a lot quicker. It's very satisfying watching a dungeon get destroyed like that.
Of course. There's actually, and we'll talk about this when we see the pillars, but there's actually several methods you can do here.
Right, Riddler getting the cutscene eat.
Very nice, very nice.
It's probably one of the shortest dungeons if everything goes right.
Yes, but that's the big if. There's this one trick that the runners may choose to do or may choose a different method that can be very RNG heavy.
Pika got his cutscene skip as well, so he's not far behind.
Alright, so first...
Important note, kill the green Zol, never forget.
Never forget. For some reason, you have to kill it to make it work.
Right. Do you want to explain the different bomb triggers they can do?
Sure. So, the method Riddler was using there was using the pit. And he did it in an unbuffered method. You can also use the pit method by buffering as well. You can also use screen transitions, which looks like what PikaPals is doing there, which you can also buffer as well. So there's just a lot of different methods you can use here. And, of course, the buffered methods are slower than the unbuffered methods, but there's a lot of different ways to do it if you're more comfortable with one versus the other.
Alright, let's see what Riddler chooses to do. I think he's going for Goomba Surf. Oh, and he boots out of it. Nice!
Yes.
First try, the Goomba cooperated.
Very impressive. Yeah, that skip can be very painful.
That saves you about 15 seconds compared to the other method of getting to the boss room. We'll see which method PikaPals goes for. But first, Riddler's fighting Evil Eagle. Now, you may remember this boss casually as being a pain and getting blown off. Not anymore! Thank you, Bomb. 3 bomb hits and he will be down for the count.
Oh, didn't get that one, though.
While he's doing that, PikaPal's going for Goomba Surf as well. Getting it first try as well, albeit a couple seconds slower, due to the Goomba RNG.
Yeah, so but he didn't have
on Evil Eagle.
He didn't have to get out his boots, though, which saves a little bit of time.
That is true. So it's Evil Eagle down for Riddler. Important note, don't leave the screen without getting the heart.
Very, very true. I had issues with this on my first race. Yeah, Evil Eagle isn't too terrible if you get the rhythm down, but as you saw with Riddler, if you don't time your bombs correctly, then you'll just be thrown off in terms of when you have to drop your bombs, and sometimes it's just better in that case to start the dungeon, or not the dungeon, start the boss over again.
Indeed. And that is D7 complete. Now on to the last dungeon, Dungeon 8. But first, oh no, he's about to fall into the hole! And skipped. If you fall into that hole, you're going like a minute out of your way. We don't want that. So if you actually buffer a save and quit menu on that screen transition, coming out of it, you're able to skip that hole.
Yep, and that's another one on a list of things that I have done in a race.
I think I've done that every single run I've done, falling in that hole. Alright, so do y'all remember that girl from earlier in this game? What was her name? Zelda, I think? Something like that. Hey, there she is! Oh, she needs our help. We should go rescue her. Oh, wait. Sorry, we're on a timer. You're on your own!
Yeah, so the thing with that is that if you do talk to her, then... If you do talk to Marin, then it takes about 40 seconds because Terran comes in and then the owl comes in. It's just this really big time loss. So it's better to just go and jump on past her.
We're speedrunners, forget the girl.
It will all work out at the end, I'm sure.
Totally. So coming up on another skip, Flame Skip. Now you're supposed to have the shield at this point from Dungeon 7. In case you hadn't noticed, we didn't get it. Because it takes time and, well, we've learned we don't need it. Because you could just clip into the wall, boots through the flame, boom, done. You're not supposed to be able to do that. And coming up, we have another bomb trigger. This one to open Dungeon 8.
Yeah, and just like with the bomb triggers in that previous dungeon, you have to have that enemy dead, that moblin there dead, in order for the skip to work properly. And then you can just run through this guy's head because no hitboxes. Very, very nice.
And Pika getting flame skip. This dungeon isn't terribly long, however, it is a bit of a maze. And it does take some getting used to. So you're going to see a couple bombable walls here that you don't realize are there, but it saves us a lot of time going through.
Yeah, thankfully we can perform that one naked super jump over that line of blocks that cuts down on this dungeon a lot.
Hey, fun fact, we can push this block from the side.
There we go.
Not sure why, but we can. A little bit of a time save.
It's LADX. Riddler here going a little bit of a different route, where if you kill all the enemies in this room, then you can get into this room here, where you can also get into that room by bombing the wall from the other side.
Alright, on to Blano. No Blano skip allowed, that's out of bounds, so instead we have to fight him and get 4 hits in on him. Now, if you take too long and you get hit by him, he will shoot you back to the beginning of the dungeon. We definitely don't want that.
Yeah, he can hit you with some regular attacks too, but it's this big, like, wind-up attack that will send you back to the dungeon, and very big time loss there, so...
Riddler getting the flame rod, just a little bit more of the dungeon to go. Gotta go get the boss key and then make our way to the final boss hothead, which is a bit of RNG. So this is still anybody's race. And for anyone that was missing Dungeon 4, you wish we could go back, well, I've got good news. It is the return of Cue Ball.
Flame Cue Ball here.
And he hasn't learned. He hasn't gotten any stronger. He's done. And now time for every LADX speedrunner's favorite room.
Yeah, so the thing with this room is essentially you have to move this block over all of these pits, which in and of itself is a little bit bad, but also you should be jumping in a certain way so that you end up as close to that chest as possible when it spawns. So it's very easy to miss a direction and have to start that room over again.
Or jump into the pit. Now, next trick we see over on Riddler's screen after he gets his arrow refill is a Jesus jump. Real easy to do. On the last frame before you fall into water or lava, you see the splash particles? If you buffer, was it menu or save and quit? I believe the menu, and jump out of it, you're actually clipped into the wall, which allows you to do a super jump. And now you see the hothead boss fight. Cannot stand this guy. We still don't know how many hits it takes to kill him. It seems like it's different every time. And Riddler getting a decent fight.
Yeah, there's some weird things going on with his invincibility frames. Sometimes it feels like you need to mash to beat him. Sometimes it feels like...
Most important trick. Oh, he didn't even go for it.
Oh.
I'm sorry to say, Riddler is now disqualified and banned from the community.
For all time.
We'll see if Pika gets it.
Ooh, got first cycle there.
Still a very close race. And with the RNG on the final boss, anybody can win this.
Will he get it?
He at least tried.
Yeah,
there it is. Wang Boys.
Wang Boys indeed.
I think Pika should win just because of that.
Well, we'll have to see. Maybe the nightmare fights here will have good RNG because he did that one trick correctly.
Indeed. Now, before we get to the nightmare fights, we have 2 things left to do. The first is we have another bomb trigger because we don't have the ocarina. So we'll bomb trigger the next screen up to essentially play the ocarina and start the cutscene with all the instruments and open up the windfish egg. After that, we have a bit of a maze inside the egg. Now, good news, if you played this casually, you had to read a book in the library to figure out the path through the maze. Turns out, if you never read that book, the path is always the same. Left, left, up. Right, right, up. Left, up. So, in a speedrun, we don't read it, we know where we're going. So, would you like to explain some of the last fight? Because it's going to go very quick, and there's a lot.
Alright, so the first thing that they'll be doing once they get there is performing this text skip, which, once again, you use the power of bombs to be able to skip some text, which skips the text, unfortunately gets rid of the music, but saves time there. Next, they'll be lining up for something called the blob quick kill, where if you go in a certain position and swing your sword at the right time, you can actually kill the blob instantly. However, if you don't make that, you'll have to get out your magic powder and kill him that way. And then after that, there's the Aghanim fight, where he'll fire some good shots and he'll fire some blue balls, which you can't reflect with your sword. So, very RNG heavy there. 50-50 chance of a good shot or a bad.
Here we go on Riddler's screen, and he gets text skip, that's good. So we'll see if he gets a blob quick kill.
I don't know if he's at the right...
I don't know, I've never even tried for it.
Yeah, I don't think he got it there, so he's going to have to take out his powder.
So, continuing with the fight, Phase 3 will be Moldorm again. Now, ideally, we can get a quick kill on him, and spin slash and just keep him in place, get all 16 hits. Okay, so first two balls are guaranteed to be good.
And then after that, it's just up to
PikaPals
RNG.
Not getting it either.
Yeah, the blob quick kill can be very tricky, because you have to get in the exact right pixel in order to do it. So, one blue ball there for Riddler. Another one.
And this is allowing Pika to catch up. Pika gets good RNG. But either way, this may just come down to Deathel.
Got one good shot. Needs one more.
I think Pika's gotten 3 in. That might have only been 2.
Alright, now for the Moldorm quick kill, hopefully. There we go.
Riddler got it. After that, time for the Nightmare of Ganon. Just got boots into him, get the hits in, and move on. Now, don't blink on Riddler's screen or you'll miss the next one. Up comes Nightmare of Landmulla. Goodbye, Nightmare of Landmulla. And on to Nightmare of Aghanim. Or not Aghanim, Deathel. We just did Aghanim, we don't want to go back. Gotta get 16 hits in on the eye. And when his eye opens is RNG. And Pika right behind, he just killed Landmulla, so they are tied. It's coming up to Deathel. Riddler's struggling a bit. He's gonna have to do an extra eye phase.
Yeah, Riddler is just not getting great RNG there. This could be very close.
These players, this is very close. This might end up being the closest race we've had. Oh, and there it is for Pika. And there's Riddler. Oh my gosh. Earlier today we had a 10-second race. This one. Wow, look at those times. You will see in a moment.
So it looks like on SRL, PikaPals got a time of 58.26, and Riddler got a time of 58.28.
2-second difference as we are taking their SRL times. That is the closest match of the tournament.
Very, very nice.
Told you this would be a close one, but wow, I did not expect that. 2 seconds.
Jeez.
Why did... Oh, gosh. Silly live split. Let's see if we can get the runners in here. That was some race.
Yeah, it looks like Riddler can't do an interview, but we'll see if PikaPals can.
Okay. And Pika said he'll be here in a minute. So just to recap for those coming in, official times for PikaPals using the SRL times, it was a 58.26. For Riddler, it was a 58.28, a 2-second difference.
Yeah, and I think for PikaPals, that might have been a PB.
It is actually by a decent amount. Let me write this real quick.
Yeah, PikaPals...
Yeah, by over a minute.
Yeah, his PB was a 59.38. So definitely got a PB there.
Yeah, Pika will in a moment. There's PikaPals. Hello, hello.
Hey.
Congratulations. What a race and what a finish.
Yeah, thanks. Apparently that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, this race was close almost the entire time. You, for the most part, were actually trailing by at least a couple seconds. I'd say almost the entire time up until the very end, up until Deathel. So what are your first reactions over that race?
I mean, that went really well for me. That's like a minute PB.
Indeed it is. Your old PB was a 59.38. This one is a 58.26. 58.22 if you go by your live split time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really amazing in that Deathel fight. Riddler actually got there earlier than you, but
Seems to
just
struggle
had
a
a
bit.
lot worse RNG compared to you.
Oh, no. Yeah, Deathel can be rude like that.
So you had that. You had first try horse heads. That really helped. And not only that, out of all 4 players that ran today, you were the first and only one to get the Wang.
Okay.
So I'd like to think that you deserve the win because of that.
At least someone managed to do it.
Exactly. That's why Deathel gave you the better RNG.
I guess so.
What were your thoughts during that race? Did you know where you were in relation to Riddler?
Not really. I know he's a pretty good player and has been around for a while, but I haven't seen him race that much. I felt a little behind after screwing up Rooster Skip once, but
You both
everything else
messed
went
that
really
up.
well.
So that definitely helped you. He failed it just before you did, so we thought, wow, you have a great opportunity here, and then you fell as well, and it was back to pretty much tied.
Yeah,
I
I
think-
blame Bow Wow. It's all
Yeah,
Bow Wow's fault.
both of you had Bow Wow issues in there.
So, any other thoughts from the race?
Not really. Just good game, Riddler. And I'm glad to have somehow won.
Yeah, and I think with this, I'm pretty sure you're going to advance now.
I was just pulling that up.
Yeah, because
Indeed.
Vlak.
Yeah, it was just us 3.
Yeah, and Vlak definitely is going to advance, and so you'll have 2 wins and 1 loss over his 1 loss and 2 losses and 1 win. So.
So Black will advance as well as you, PikaPals. Congratulations. Now, coming into this tournament, do you think you would make it to the next stage?
Definitely not. I started running this around the time SGDQ was going on because I saw there was a tournament, so getting this far.
Yeah, well, congratulations, definitely.
Indeed. So do we have any closing thoughts?
No, just good luck to all the other runners.
Yeah, and speaking of other runners, I think the next races for LEDX are going to actually be tomorrow. Final Flame actually here is going to race. He has 2 races tomorrow.
Yes. I was just looking at the schedule. Next races for us will be tomorrow. There will be a race both at 8 and at 10:30, both featuring me. Oh God, help me. And that will be over on the regular Speed Gaming channel. For now, that's going to be it for us, unless anyone has anything else to say.
No, I think we're good.
All right,
So,
over on Speed Gaming 1, it's Final Fantasy 1 randomizer. I assume that's where everyone will be heading after this.
Yep.
So thank you very much for coming by. Once again, congratulations to PikaPals on the closest race in this tournament and advancing to the next round.